When classifying angles, we move directly into measuring angles. Very natural transition. And the warm-up is a really great start for today's lesson. We mark each angle as acute, obtuse, right, or straight. So it's pretty easy. This one is acute, less than 90. This one is obtuse. This one is probably a right angle. Without a protractor, it might be hard to tell. This is acute. This is obtuse. And this is acute. An obtuse angle should be between 90 degrees and 180 degrees. So between a right angle and a straight angle. A 180-degree angle is called a straight angle because it forms a straight line. And like I said, this one is naturally what we're doing today. We're using our knowledge of angle classification to determine the best angle measurements. And we're practicing finding angle measurements with a protractor. Kids turn in their homework from the first lesson, and they do have one tonight. So we label the parts of the protractor. Here we have a 0 point. It's this little hole in the protractor where you line up the vertex, the corner of the angle. And then the line going across here is the 0 edge, because you can see that it lines up with our 0-degree marks. That would be here. And then we have an inner scale on the inside of the protractor and an outer scale on the outside of the protractor. And I like to get kids to kind of notice that 90 lines up with 90, 80 lines up with 100 on both sides, 70 with 110 on both sides, 60 and 120. So it's basically just a mirror, 10 and 170. Okay. We go over the steps for measuring an angle. Step 1, we classify the angle as obtuse or acute, or right or straight, but usually it'll be acute or obtuse. If necessary, we use the straight edge of our protractor to extend the leg or edge of the angle. If the leg won't quite reach the protractor scale, so it's hard to determine, then you can use the straight edge of the protractor to make the leg longer. If you don't use the straight edge, you run the risk of having a line that bends and doesn't give you an accurate reading. Then we line up the vertex, or the corner of the angle, with the 0 points on the protractor. And we're going to go through all these examples, all these steps together on an example so that they will be more clear. Fourth step, line up one edge of the angle with the 0 edge of the protractor. Then we find the measurement where the other edge or leg of the angle meets the scale. And we use our classification of the angle, either acute or obtuse, to choose whether to use the measurement from the inner scale or the outer scale. We'll come back to why it's important to classify the angle before measuring it as soon as we attempt a measurement. So we have this up here, and I'm going to go ahead and make it bigger for these purposes so that we can really see what we're doing when we use the protractor. So our protractor's right here. Let's take away the showing. So it says the first thing that I should do is, well, first of all, I'm going to need to label whether it is acute or obtuse. So this is definitely an obtuse angle. Now this protractor is definitely big enough that I don't need to extend my line, but let's pretend it was a small protractor. It's like this small. Oh, sorry, my bad. It's a big protractor. It's huge, this big. So it's hard to see where the line will go. What I would do is I would go ahead and rotate my protractor to line it up with the line. It's roughly correct. Yeah. And then I would extend the line along the edge of the protractor. For kids, this is going to be easier because they're actually using a physical protractor to extend the line so they can really see it. Alright, then I'm going to do step 3, which is to line up the 0 point with the vertex of the angle. Bam. Then I'm going to line up the 0 edge. Now this one's already lined up, but that's not the one I extended, so I'm going to rotate it so that it's on the other leg. It doesn't really matter which leg, but like I said, for these purposes, I want the one that I extended so I can see where it goes through. Now this angle goes through roughly at 70/110, maybe a little bit to the left. So the measurement of this angle is going to be either, let's say, 71 or 109. But how do I know which one to choose out of 71 degrees or 109 degrees? Well, that's where our classification comes in. This is an obtuse angle. An obtuse angle is between 90 degrees and 180 degrees. This is the only measurement that's between 90 degrees and 180 degrees. So this has to be about a 109 degree angle. So to go back to our other page, go ahead and reset this because we're going to be using it again. It's important to classify the angle before we measure it to determine which scale to use. Which scale or measurement to use. This is why we classified angles first, so that we know that if it's acute, it's going to be less than 90. If it's obtuse, it's going to be more than 90 to help us decide when we actually do the measurements. So we have this section called right or wrong, where these students were measuring that angle that we just measured. So we already know it's around 109 degrees, so that'll help us with these questions. When Angelique measured this angle, she got 137 degrees, which we already know is wrong because it's not 109. It's pretty far off. The question is, what mistake did Angelique make? And I put this to the class. But basically the idea here is the 0 point is lined up, but the 0 edge isn't lined up. Her angles are just going off every which way. So she didn't line up the 0 edge. Then we have Barron, who claims that his angle is 109 degrees. Well, that's what we found. So we're going to say, yeah, he's right. And he didn't make any mistakes. Then we have Havana claims his angle is 115 degrees. It's not that far from what we said, but it's still wrong. Usually you want to be within 1 or 2 degrees of the correct answer. And this is about 6 degrees off, so it's too big of a difference. So what mistake did Havana make? Well, you can see that the edge is lined up, but the point is not lined up with the vertex. The 0 point and the vertex are in a different place. So she didn't line up the 0 point. She didn't line up the vertex and 0 point. CJ claims this angle is 72 degrees. Is he right or wrong? Well, we already know that it is 109 degrees, but the 0 point is lined up, the 0 edge is lined up. It does look like it goes through 72, because it's between 70 and 80, that's about 72. But it also goes through 108, 109, and we determined that this is an obtuse angle. So CJ used the wrong scale. He used the acute measurement. Right? Another way to look at this, if you don't want to look at the acute or obtuse measurement, is that the leg on the 0 edge points to the 0 that you want to use. The 0 is on the outer scale, so we use the outer scale for our measurement. And see, on this one's facing the other way, the the 0 is on the inner scale over here, the side of the leg, so we use the inner scale measurement. But I personally just like to find whether it's obtuse or acute and figure out which angle makes the most sense. To me, that's the most helpful. Okay, then we have some practice. First is just look at the diagram where everything's already lined up for you. Take some of the error of measurement out. So this is already lined up. We're going to say that this is an acute angle. But is it 53 degrees or 47 degrees? Well, both of those are acute measurements. They're both less than 90, and we said it's an acute angle. And I can see that it's about 3 degrees away from 50. But is it 53 or 47? The thing to remember here is that it's between 40 and 50. So which number is between 40 and 50? 47. Also, we find the leg starts at 0, so it's going up 10, 20, 30, 47. Okay. For this one, it's an obtuse angle. And it asks, is it 70 degrees or 110 degrees? Well, it's obtuse. It has to be bigger than 90, so we're going to go with 110 degrees. This one is also an obtuse angle. So is it 80 or 100? Well, 100 is an obtuse measurement. It's more than 90, so we're going to go with 100 degrees. And then the kids actually use protractors to measure some angles. I'm only going to do a couple of these as examples. You really have to have a protractor to get the most out of these. So here's my protractor, and make it a little bigger. I'm going to go ahead and line up the 0 point with the vertex. And line up the 0 edge, the line there. Oh, I forgot this is an acute angle. So it should be the acute measurement. So it's going through maybe 40 or 140. It's got to be the acute measurement though, so we're going to go with about 40 degrees, maybe 41. Okay? So we just get some practice in. Make sure you're choosing the right degree measurement. I don't even have any more examples in here. All I can show you is the homework. And the homework is more of the same. It does not require a protractor. I'm not going to require a protractor with the homework because I know that a lot of kids don't have protractors and I don't have enough to lend them out to go home. So homework will not require a protractor. It'll be stuff like this where the angles are already on the protractor. But that's the basics of measuring angles.